Hey, everybody, we're back. And I want to thank you for joining me. If you're catching this on replay, thank you so much. And for those of you that are going to be joining me live here for the stream today, we have a very cool topic that we're going to talk about on this weekly Freight Broker Bootcamp Live. And today we're going to talk about 4 big distractions that could derail your freight broker business. And I took a ton of notes here. My handwriting's horrible, but I did take a bunch of notes that I wanted to share with you guys. And so today we're going to talk about 4 big distractions that could derail your freight broker business. But before we get into that, just to give you a quick heads up, thank you for joining me. It's 11:30 a.m. on Monday, right? This is when we're going live. Normally I do these trainings at noon, but unfortunately, I have to go to the dentist at 1 o'clock today. And so I had to push this a little bit earlier. I didn't want to reschedule. I didn't want to miss it. I just wanted to make sure that I was here. So we're doing it a little bit earlier today. The trainings are still going to be at noon, but today I had to do it at 11:30 a.m. So if you missed this because I had to do it a little early, I apologize. You can catch it on replay. And however you're catching this, whether this be on replay or whether this be live, thank you for being here. I truly appreciate it. Again, we do these Freight Broker Bootcamp Lives every Monday at noon. And today, for those of you that are just joining the stream, we're going to talk about 4 big distractions that could derail your freight broker business if you're not aware of them, if you don't prepare for them. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we do that, let's hear from the audience. Let's hear from everybody joining here. Type in the chat box the city and state that you're logging in from. I'll give you a quick shout out. I'll try to hit everybody. I'd love to hear where you guys are coming from. As we wait for people to get live here, let's do some quick shout outs here. So who do we got in the audience? Let me know. City and state. Okay, we've got, here they go. Here they're flying. We got Yogi from Goa, India, as always. Thanks for joining us. We have Josh Sandhu from Toronto, Canada. We have Alicia from Atlanta. We've got, wow, they're flying in now. We got people from DC. We got Keisha from New Windsor, New York. We've got Kendrick from Lakeland, Florida. We got a freight agent from Mexicali, Mexico. Love it. We got Night Ride Ranger from Pablo, California, or Colorado. I'm sorry. We got Sherazad from Daytona, Ohio. We've got Cynthia from Maryland. We got Melissa from Fayetteville, North Carolina. We've got Sylvia from New Jersey. We got Albert from Little Rock. We got James from South Carolina. We've got, Ambitious 205 from Birmingham, Alabama. Treacherous Bailey from Hampton, Georgia. Andre Gordon from Detroit, Michigan. Anthony Caridi from nowhere, but he put his name in, which is cool. We've got Joshua Dalton from Dallas, Texas. Tej Sethi from Toronto, Canada. Jasmine from Rockville, Maryland. L. Diamond from Chesapeake, Virginia. Manuel from Lake Oconee, Georgia. Amjad from Mumbai, India. So we've got Mexico and India and the U.S., and I think we had Canada in here as well. Ronaldo from Allentown, PA. Terrence from Detroit. Ian from Atlanta. So we got a lot of people from all over the United States and other countries. As usual, every Monday we have these live trainings. They're absolutely free. They don't cost you anything. The price of admission today is for you to like the stream, add some comments based upon feedback about the stream, and most importantly, share the stream, right? Just click the share button, share it on Facebook, share it on YouTube, share it on Twitter, share it on wherever you share on social. Facebook is probably where most of you are catching this, either that or YouTube. Share the stream. Let others know about it. That's the price of admission. I don't put a pay gate up here. I don't charge for these weekly trainings. And typically I do live Q&A at the end. I'm going to do an abbreviated Q&A at the end of this because I do have to get prepped for the dentist. I chipped a tooth here way back in there. Kind of nasty. But I chipped a tooth and I'm not sure what he's going to do. I don't know if he's going to do a root canal. I don't know if he's going to pull it. A little nervous. Not real fond of the dentist. Not sure about you, but it's not my favorite pastime is to go visit the dentist. So thank you everybody for joining me. And those of you that are just joining me live now, today we're going to talk about 4 big distractions that could derail your freight broker business. These are very important things that you have to be prepared for mentally, because I promise you, All four of these things are going to happen to you. All four of them are going to happen to you. It happens to every entrepreneur. It happens to every startup. It happened to me. And I promise you it's going to happen to you. Okay. So we're going to dive into that. Want to give a real special shout out before we get started to my Freight Broker Bootcamp students, everybody who's been enrolled in Freight Broker Bootcamp. Maybe you were enrolled a couple years ago and now you're a freight broker or freight agent, you're still learning. Maybe you just got enrolled recently, or today you got enrolled as one of the Freight Broker Bootcamp online students. For those of you that don't know, I've had Freight Broker Bootcamp, which is an online training platform for freight brokers and freight agents, most cost-effective, comprehensive online platform available today. And it's available. I've had it for over a decade. We've trained over 8,000 students through that. So you could always check that out. If you're curious, maybe you're a first timer or you're just thinking about joining a brokerage now, check it out at freightbrokerbootcamp.com. And I want to give a big shout out to all my students. If you're already enrolled or you've already been a member of Freight Broker Bootcamp, my online paid course, type in the chat box, hashtag student. Just type that in the chat box. I'll give you a quick shout out and then we're going to get this ball rolling. We're going to get started with the training. And again, today we're going to talk about 4 big distractions that could derail you from building a successful freight broker business. So hit me up in the chat box with hashtag student if you are already a student, if you've already been enrolled in the course. So of course, Carol Johnson's here. She's always here. Welcome. Jasmine, student, welcome. SK Scott, welcome. Thank you for being a part of the community. Ronaldo, student. Yogi, student. We've got Treacherous Bailey, a student. We've got Manuel Morales, a student. So these are people, everybody who's typing hashtag student are already students in my course, okay? So thank you for being here. This is a kind of an ongoing training that they can participate in every week, but I do open this training up to everybody. So there are probably first timers in the audience that have never been here, but I did want to give a special shout out to some of those students. Welcome Terrence, who's a student. Welcome Jordan Jade Hair Extensions, a student. Thomasine Squire Biango, student. Shakaris Dixon, student. We got a Facebook user without a name who's a student. We got Luke Armand, who's a student. Oh, scrolling down here. Sorry about that. We have Amanda Hyatt, student. We've got Reno, who's a student. We've got Boudelaziz, who's a student. We got Carlos. If I'm murdering your name, I apologize again. The type is very small. The feed goes really fast, and my vision is probably not as good now at 50 as it was when I was 30. So I apologize for that. Brandon, welcome. Anthony and Tej. So, all right. Well, Anthony, I'm glad you're impatient. You're impatient because you want to learn. So let's start the training, okay? Today, thank you everybody for joining. Today, we're going to talk about 4 big distractions that could derail your freight broker business. This is what we got a lot of information to go over today. So we're going to dive into this. We're going to pull this apart. And number 1 on the list, and these are in no discernible order, but one of the primary distractions that you are going to face as a startup freight broker or as an entrepreneur in almost any industry is listening to too many people. Now, what I mean by that is this. When you have an idea for a business, whether that be whatever business that is, and many times you want to get feedback from people that are closest to you. You want to ask them, do you know anything about this? What do you think about my idea? And that's okay. I mean, there's nothing wrong with getting feedback from people. Maybe you're even getting feedback from people that are already in that industry or doing that business. And I think that's a great idea. The challenge is listening to too many people, because what happens is if you have too many voices and opinions in your head, it can literally confuse and distract you and overwhelm you, right? So having a lot of different people in your ear, giving their opinions, giving their feedback, giving you ideas can be positive when it's very controlled, but when it gets too wide and you get too many people chirping in your ear, it can get overwhelming and very distracting. Another issue with listening to too many people is a lot of those people, and sometimes they're the people that are closest to you, are going to give you negative feedback. right? So they're going to say things like people said to me when I first started my freight brokerage. I told a few people around me, and some of them said to me, Dennis, what are you, crazy? You don't know anything about logistics. You've never been in the freight industry. Why would you do that? Why don't you just go get a job? Right. And that's what I heard from several people. I mean, I had a lot of people around me that did support me. Don't get me wrong, particularly my wife and some of my close family members. But I had other people that were looking at me like I had a big green eyeball sticking out of the middle of my forehead, and they thought I was crazy. And so they gave me a lot of negative feedback. So you need to be prepared for that. It's okay to share what you're doing with a small group of people that you trust. Just know that some of them are going to give you negative feedback, and I don't want that to derail you, because sometimes that negative feedback can make you second guess your idea, your process, your goals, right? And also having too many people in your ear giving you too much feedback can be very confusing and overwhelming. So that's a huge distraction. Number one, listening to too many people. All right. So you have to understand that. That's number one. Number two on the list, mistaking busyness for productive. Let me say that again. Mistaking busyness for productive. We as humans are hardwired to believe that being busy is equal to being productive. And it's not true. Okay. I know a lot of people that are very busy, doing all these things. They got 25 things on their to-do list, and they're really busy because they directly correlate busy with being successful. And I understand, because I fell victim to that as well early in my career. And I think we all do. But understand, there's a difference between being busy and productive. What your goal is to be productive, not busy, right? Would you rather achieve 5 really important, tasks in a given week? Or would you rather achieve 10 not so important tasks in a week, right? The value of those activities and those tasks are not all the same. You've probably heard me talk about it before, and sorry about that, but my nose is itching. So you've probably heard me talk about that before in different trainings where I talk about the Pareto principle, or the 80-20 rule. And that is, if you make a to-do list of 10 activities, you sit down in the morning, you make a to-do list of 10 activities. The Pareto principle says that there's 2 activities on that list that will help you to achieve more goal, the 80-20. So it will help you to move further in your business and be more productive and profitable than the other 8 combined, right? So you have to understand, not all activity is the same, right? And so being busy is not the goal. Being productive is the goal, right? And so you have to be conscious of that. I used to have this really long to-do list every day when I was a young entrepreneur. And, in most cases, even they were just different activities that I either really weren't that important, I should have delegated, or just didn't belong on my list. And so but because I had this long list, I felt like I had something to strive for, something, and that I was going to be busy, and that equaled success. And reality is, these days, when I get up in the morning, and this has been going on for, 15 years or more, I usually only have 2 or 3 things on my list, but they are really important, high value activities. So I don't have this big, long to-do list. I'm not busy all day. I have all kinds of white space where I can think, be creative, and have a little bit of flexibility to do the things that evolve throughout the day. But I usually only have a couple of really important things. So don't mistake busy for being productive, right? And so you have to learn to focus on those high value activities, right? All right. So that's number 2, mistaking busyness for productive. All right. Number 3, this is one that I see a lot, and this is a difficult one. Procrastinating on critical tasks. So procrastinating on critical tasks. I see a lot of startup brokers. Okay. And many times they avoid the most valuable and important component to starting and growing a successful business, and that is prospecting. I'll see a lot of startups, they'll avoid it. They will procrastinate. They'll put it off till the afternoon. And then the next thing you know, they'll put it off till tomorrow. And the next thing you know, it's 3 days and 5 days and a week later, and they've done little or no prospecting. And prospecting is the lifeblood of any B2B service business. You have to be prospecting. I mean, you're not selling an e-commerce product. You're selling a service which requires you to actually talk to your prospects. So you're either dialoguing with them via email or social media or over the phone or on a Zoom call or face-to-face. And so prospecting is a key component of building a successful brokerage. But I see a lot of startup brokers procrastinating and pushing it off. And the reason why is because they're uncomfortable with it, right? It gets them out of their comfort zone. And so what happens is they end up focusing on these other tasks that are not nearly as important, right? And so, they focus on things like setting up their website or software or business cards. And those are all important things. But let's face it, guys, none of those are nearly as critical or important as prospecting. And so I promise you, you don't need a business card in order to get a shipper as a freight broker. I promise you, you absolutely don't need a website to get your first shipper. Now, these are all good things to have. But I'm going to tell you right now that you can do business as a freight broker or freight agent without those things. But here's what you can't do without. You can't do without prospecting. You can't do without having conversations with your target market. Okay? So procrastinating on critical issues is a huge, huge mistake. And it's a huge issue. And I see it all the time, particularly when it comes to selling and prospecting. Okay? So that's number 3, procrastinating on critical tasks. And number 4, this is one that's near and dear to my heart. And that is, it derails many, many entrepreneurs, whether you're a startup or not. And that is saying yes to everything. We as humans have a tendency to want to be people pleasers. We like to say yes. And as an entrepreneur, you are going to have lots of things thrown at you, particularly if you become successful, or even as a startup. You're going to have a lot of people asking you for help or trying to sell you something, whatever the case may be. You have to understand that when you say yes to one thing, inherently you're saying no to something else, because time is finite. There's only so many hours in a day, right? What is it? I think there's only 168 hours in a week. And that may seem like a lot, but when you factor out 6 to 8 hours of sleep and a few hours with the family, the next thing you know, that gets whittled down. So you have a very finite amount of time, right, to achieve your goals. And so saying yes to everything is a surefire way to derail the success of your freight brokerage. And so, don't be a people pleaser. You can't say yes to everything. And here's a few things. I made a list of a few things that startup entrepreneurs and freight brokers need to say no to. Say no to other business ideas. You're going to have a lot of people that are going to ask you to join them in business or invest in a business or ask for feedback on their business or want to talk to you about their business. And just say no to that. That's a huge distraction. And I know it may seem a little harsh, particularly if it's a friend, but you have to understand, you have a finite amount of time and you have to use and leverage that time to the absolute maximum in order to grow your business, to survive and to thrive and to hit your goals. So learning how to say no is a really important thing. So say no to investing in other businesses. Say no to people that ask if they can pick your brain. I get this all the time. Hey, can we get on a call and can I pick your brain? I would love to help you. Unfortunately, this is the best way. Fortunately, this is the best way for me to help you, which is to be able to distribute this type of training and information to thousands of people versus doing it one-on-one. Because this takes me an hour and I hit tens of thousands of people with this message over the course of the next 30 days. But if I spent 1 hour with you having coffee or a Zoom call or whatever, as much as I'd love to do that, it's just not the best use of my time. And so that saying yes to those type of things like, can I pick your brain? Those things are not a good use of your time, particularly as a startup. Another one is, salespeople or businesses trying to sell you stuff, getting on the phone with salespeople, them wanting to sell you stuff. Waste of your time. Don't waste your time. If it's not a critical component of your business, say no, right? And then anything that's what I would consider non-strategic networking. So I'm not saying no to all networking, but I am saying no to anything that's not strategic. If it doesn't directly align you as a freight broker, if it doesn't directly align you with a shipper, a carrier, an employee that's going to work from you, or some component of technology that is going to directly impact your business, don't network, right? Networking is not for startups, not generic networking. I don't want you out there going to networking events and people hitting you up on LinkedIn and saying, hey, let's jump on a call and help each other out and figure out, what you do and what I do. Don't do that. Don't waste your time. I promise you, the best thing you can do is focus on the high priority activities, which I've already shared with you, some of them. Obviously, prospecting is an important component of that. So rather than you spending an hour in a can I pick your brain call, or someone trying to pitch you on their idea, what you're better off doing is spending that hour prospecting or defining your niche or developing carrier relationships or understanding the rating in your niche or in your different lanes and areas that you're going to focus in on. So understand, those are the 4 big mistakes, right? Big distractions that could derail you. Number 1, listening to too many people. Number 2, mistaking busyness for productivity. Number 3, procrastinating on critical issues. And number 4, saying yes to everything. Those are 4 huge distractions that you have to be, number 1, prepared for, and number 2, address as they come. And I promise you, they're going to happen. If they haven't happened to you already, they're going to happen. Right? And so I wanted to share those 4 with you today because I think it's really important. I like to set expectations for my students and for my followers and for people that want to start a freight brokerage or a freight agency. I want you to understand these are things that are all going to impact you either starting today or somewhere in the next 3 to 6 months. You're probably going to face some of these challenges. So my goal is to head it off at the pass and prepare you for that so that you can recognize when those things are happening to you and you can address them so that they don't derail your business. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did, hold tight for a Q&A. We're going to do a short Q&A. But right now, if you are curious about becoming a freight broker or freight agent, check out freightbrokerbootcamp.com, the most cost-effective, comprehensive online freight broker training program available today. We've got multiple memberships, lifetime memberships, 1-year gold memberships. Over 8,000 students have been trained through that course, been in business over a decade. And most importantly, we offer a 60-day, 100% money back guarantee. If you're not happy, just send us an email. We'll send your money back. It's absolutely no problem. Okay. So if you're curious about that, maybe you're a truck driver and you've been thinking about starting a freight brokerage, check out freightbrokerbootcamp.com. Maybe you're the spouse of a truck driver and you've been thinking about starting a freight broker business. Check out freightbrokerbootcamp.com. Maybe you work in logistics on the shipper side or on the carrier side or wherever, and you've been thinking about starting a freight brokerage or a freight agency. Check out freightbrokerbootcamp.com. You won't be disappointed. I truly appreciate you being here. Let's jump into some Q&A. I'm going to grab a quick drink. And before we jump into the Q&A, how many people in this stream have already run into one of these 4 issues, right? I gave you the 4 issues. How many have already run into one of these 4 issues? Hit me up in the chat box and let me know the issue that you ran into. Listening to too many people, mistaking busyness for productivity, procrastinating on critical tasks, and saying yes to everything. How many of you are guilty of that already? I know I was guilty. Don't feel bad. You can own it. It's not a big deal. It's easy to correct, right? But if you've ever run into this, admitting and acknowledging that this is an issue is the first step, right? And then from there, we can address it. All right. So let's see who we got. All right. So I think we've got a bunch of other questions flying in here too. So let me grab a quick drink. We'll jump into some Q&A and then we're going to wrap this up a little bit early because 1, my tooth is killing me. And 2, I got to go to the dentist and figure it out. I don't know if they're going to pull it or I'm going to be doing a root canal. Ugh, I'm not looking forward to it. Shots in the mouth are never any fun. But It is what it is. Got to take care of it. I didn't get any sleep last night. I got a couple hours sleep last night because it was killing me. So that's not your problem, but I did want to share why we were doing this early. And I think you could probably relate because everybody's had this issue at one time or another. All right. So yeah, Victor says all four he's ran into. Victor's ran into all four of those. So let's jump into some Q&A here. I'll do some questions. Yep. Ian says procrastination on critical tasks. Cynthia Moore says guilty of procrastination. Steve H says all of them. Thomasine says all four as well. Listen, I appreciate you being honest with yourself, being honest to the audience, being transparent. It's the only way to change it, right? You have to understand that if you want to build a successful freight broker business, you have to figure out a way to overcome these big distractions because they will consume all your time. They will take all your time. They will distract and derail your business. I've seen so many people over the course. I've been an entrepreneur for over 25 years. And besides myself being distracted and having issues with these same sort of things, I've seen hundreds and hundreds of entrepreneurs that have fallen victim to these same issues. And these issues have literally caused them to fail when if they would have stayed focused, right? And they would have avoided these distractions, they could have been highly, highly successful. Because I promise you, some of them were smarter than me, harder working than me, and just, I think, better prepared for success than I was when I first got started, but they failed because they didn't recognize these issues. They didn't address them. And unfortunately, it was their demise. And so I hope you guys pay close attention to these and take this to heart. Let's jump into some questions. We're going to do a handful of questions. I'm not going to do a ton today. I will try to come back in here afterwards and see if I can answer those otherwise. So let's see what we got here. Let's look at a few questions. Okay, so here's a question from Little Taras. Sorry about that if I murdered it. Dennis, what's the difference of a property broker and a household goods broker? Is one more profitable than the other? Is an extra certificate required? Please explain. A freight broker is a property broker, not a household goods broker. If you wanted to move household goods like a moving company, like you were moving someone's house, that would be more household goods. A freight broker needs a property broker license, not a household goods broker. Very clear, right? So if you want to broker commercial freight that picks up at a business, delivers to a business, which is what freight brokers do, you need a property broker license. There is no certificate that is required for either of those, right? There's no certificate that's required for either of those. There's no test. There's no certificate. All there is you will apply for your freight broker authority. You'll provide all the documentation, including your BOC3 and your freight broker bond and your UCR and some of the basic stuff that the FMCSA requires, of which we go over and we walk step through step in the course, or you can just try to figure that information out online. But ultimately, you want to be, as a freight broker, the proper term for it is a property broker license. Okay. So I hope that helps. All right. So we're scrolling down through here. All right. Scrolling. Give me a minute. So we got a lot of this feedback. All right, so here's a question. Tej asks, what would be the process and action the broker should take if a carrier has gotten into an accident and the freight has been damaged or totaled? Okay, so as a freight broker, number one, you have to understand, as a freight broker, you are not liable for freight claims, cargo, or bodily injury, personal damage, also known as BIPD. That is covered by the carrier's insurance, right? That's number one. You need to understand that. All right. But the process that if a broker can be held responsible if they are negligent, right? And so the proper process that you would would have would be, first, you would notify your shipper that there was an accident with the vehicle and here's the status. Here's the information you have. You would then obviously provide them all the carrier information, right? And you would act as a moderator between the two. You do not file the claim on the shipper's behalf. You do not subrogate the claim on the shipper. You basically are a middleman, just like as a broker. You do not file the claim. The claim is not paid to you. It's not filed by you. And the reason why is because, number one, you don't own the freight. You didn't make the freight. You didn't haul the freight, because you're not anybody in that transaction. You are a third party, which is the best place to be because you have the absolute least liability, right? So simply notify the shipper exactly what happened, the carrier's details, and then from there, just update them as information evolves throughout that process. Again, if they were in an accident and the trailer went into a lake and all of a sudden now the product is all destroyed, that's going to be a claim process. The shipper is going to file directly with the carrier on the value of that claim. So they're going to provide the documentation to the carrier's insurance company. The carrier's insurance company is going to send out an insurance adjuster who's going to evaluate the claim and evaluate the validity of the claim. And then if the claim is deemed valid, then at that point, they're going to issue a check to the shipper. You will play a very, very small role in that. You mainly will be connecting the shipper directly with the carrier. Okay, so I hope that helps. All right, so Terrence has an interesting question. Dennis, can you speak on some of the services brokers provide for shippers? Well, Terrence, freight brokers broker freight. So I'm not going to get off into logistics as a whole. There's all kinds of logistics related services like warehousing and pick and pack and distribution and all kinds of things like that, that is involved in logistics. But if you're talking about just freight brokerage, the primary services that freight brokers provide is transportation management services. So, and that usually most brokers fall into the full truckload niche, where full truckload meaning it's a full tractor trailer, exclusive use truck filled with their product, a 48 or 53 foot van or flatbed or refrigerated unit. And so full truckload is a primary service that a lot of brokers offer. Some brokers also specialize in LTL. There's LTL is less than truckload, which is typically, you'll see things like UPS and FedEx. It's an individual pallet or a couple of pallets of freight, meaning a small pallet of freight. Maybe it's 250 pounds or 500 pounds or even 1,000 pounds worth of product. And that's known as LTL, or less than truckload. Another service that some brokers provide is what's called partial truckloads, right? Which is more than an LTL, but less than a full truckload. So it might be a quarter or half of a truck. And that's another type of service that some freight brokers offer. Some other services outside of the trucking side is some brokers will also do rail service. Some brokers will also do air freight. Some brokers will also do ocean freight. So those are some of the primary services. I would say the heavy majority of brokers focus heavily in the truckload sector, and it's mainly domestic. Obviously, you can do cross-border from the U.S. to Canada, U.S. to Mexico. Those are some other ancillary services. If we're just talking about freight brokerage, if you're talking about logistics as a whole, there's a whole bunch of ancillary services, cross-docking, warehousing, pick and pack, all kinds of other stuff there. But if you're focusing on the freight broker side, those are some of the primary services that brokers offer. Hope that helps. Good question. Thanks, Terrence. Scrolling through here, just looking for some questions. Okay, good question. Why do I need a bond if you're not responsible for freight or cargo? Because the bond has nothing to do with the cargo. So a freight broker bond is a surety bond that has nothing to do with the cargo claim or any sort of insurance claim. It has to do with guaranteeing payment to the carriers that you use as a broker. So what happens when the freight broker industry when the trucking industry deregulated back in the 80s, freight brokers became more prominent. And so at that time, they had set a requirement of having a $10,000 bond. And that bond guaranteed carriers that they would be paid by brokers. So it was kind of it was something to prevent asset-based carriers from not getting paid by unscrupulous brokers, right? People that didn't do business the right way. And so over the years, sometime in the last 10 years, maybe 10 years ago or so, the freight broker bond was increased from 10,000 to 75,000. When I first started my brokerage back in 2003, it was only 10,000. Then during the time that I grew my brokerage, it went up to 75,000. The good thing is the price really didn't go up that much. The price is almost, believe it or not, the price for a bond now is almost what it was, the same as it was back in 2003 for a $10,000 bond. So in any event, that's another story. But your freight broker bond has absolutely nothing to do with cargo claims. It has to do with guaranteeing payment to the carrier. So for example, you're a carrier, I'm a broker. You move a load for me, you invoice me, I don't pay you, I don't respond to you. You can then file a claim on my bond with my surety company because you have a copy of who the surety bond is through. You will then notify them. The surety bond company will contact me. And at that point, they will either make me pay it or they will pay it and then they will collect it from me. And so it's really insurance to make sure that, and it's surety to make sure that the carriers do get paid. So long answer short, it doesn't have anything to do with cargo. It has to do with paying carriers, making sure that they get paid. Good question. Thank you. All right. So here's a question. Ian, this is good news. I love to hear this. I got an email from a prospect who wants an all-in rate. Can you explain, please? An all-in rate is very simple. An all-in rate is the total freight charge to pick up from point A to point B, including your rate per mile plus your fuel surcharge, whatever charges are associated with that lane. So let's say, for example, you had a van load from Buffalo to Atlanta, okay? And a shipper, there's two types of quotes that you can typically provide for that. One is a per mile plus fuel surcharge rate. So you would say, all right, and these are just simple math, right? We'll pay $1.50 a mile plus X percentage fuel surcharge. That's one way to quote it. That's kind of a standard rate. If a shipper asks for an all-in rate, they're not asking for the breakdown. They want an all-in rate. They want you to do the math. So if it's 1,000 miles and you know your rate is $1.50 a mile, that would be $1,500. And you know that the fuel surcharge is 30%. You're going to add 30% on top of that $1,500. Let's say that's another $450. So your all-in rate would be $1,950. So they want a flat rate that includes all of your charges to pick up and deliver that load, as opposed to a freight plus fuel surcharge. Okay. Hope that's not confusing, but they want the all-in rate. And those are typically, a lot of those people are looking for spot market rates, which meaning they know that the rates can be somewhat volatile in that lane. So they're looking for, what is the rate today? What is the rate tomorrow? What is the rate this week? Because of volatility, those in supply and demand, those rates can go up and down depending upon, again, supply and demand. So I hope that helps. Yeah, that I don't understand that question. Okay. All right, so we're going to do one or two more questions. Then we're going to wrap it up. Okay, so James Baxter asks, can a freight brokerage work as a partner startup, multiple individuals, or is it best to start individually? You can absolutely have partners. You will only have one freight broker authority. So the Freight Broker Authority will be under a corporation or an LLC, typically, or an S corporation, will own the authority, right? The authority will be in that corporation's name, and then that corporation can be owned by as many people as you want, can be shareholders or owners or partners in that corporation. So yeah, they understand the bond will, or the Freight Broker Authority will be in the brokerage's name, and the ownership of that brokerage is deemed by whoever those owners are. You can have multiple owners, so there's no issue with that, James. Yeah, you can have partners. I had investors in my business when I first started, so I did not exclusively own Logistic Dynamics because I raised capital in order to start that business. I was the CEO, the founder, the guy who started and drove the business, but I did have investors and other people involved that owned equity in that company. So, and if they're going to work with you day to day, that's even better because they're going to help you drive the business. So I'm not telling you that you have to have a partnership, but you certainly can be partners with somebody in a brokerage. And you only need one broker authority and only one broker bond, which is good too. So good question. Thank you. All right, last question for today. Stick around because I am going to, before we go, I'm going to give away another shirt, another free t-shirt, a Freightpreneur t-shirt. Stick around and I am going to give away another free t-shirt. Okay. So stick around. I'm going to do that at the very end. But the last question today is, what time do you believe is too late for cold calls? After 4 p.m., elaborate, please. You know, this is very subjective. I'll give you my opinion. I don't think 4 o'clock is too late. I think that you can call prospects after 4. And I think sometimes you'll be surprised of getting people on the phone after 4 or 5 o'clock, because a lot of times, a lot of the calls will settle down then. And sometimes shipping managers, logistics managers, transportation managers are there after hours. A lot of times they aren't able to punch a clock where it's like, okay, a lot of times these managers are salaried employees and they can't just go 8 to 4 or 9 to 5. You know, they stay until the work is done. And so I think calling before 8 a.m. and after 5 p.m. can be very productive at times. Now, again, you're not going to probably you're going to get more percentage of people on the phone based on the number of people you dial. But again, you're going to get a lot of people, you're going to get a lot of voicemails. So I think you should test it. I think that making calls after 4 or 5 o'clock before 8 a.m. can be very productive. I have a tendency to be a little contrarian, right? I like to be different. I don't want to call when everybody else is calling at 8 o'clock in the morning, because that guy is extremely busy at 8 a.m. and probably doesn't want to take your call, right? And calling right before 4 o'clock when he's trying to punch out, or when, you know, the day is done or supposed to be done, may not be very productive either. So my suggestion would be to test it out. It's very subjective. I'll give you my opinion. I like to be different. I like to be a little contrarian. I like to try to call off hours, and I found it to be very productive. So I hope that helps. And now I can't find... Okay, here you go. All right, so guys, here's what we're going to do. We're going to give away a free t-shirt, right? This is it's called Freightpreneur. Someone who solves problems you don't know you have in ways you can't understand. I've been giving these away from time to time. I've given away 3 or 4. I'm going to give away another one today. If you want to be entered into a contest to win this shirt that I will ship out to you absolutely free, as long as you're in the United States, I will ship this to you absolutely free. If you want to be a part of that contest, what I want you to do is share the stream right now. Click share and share the stream. And then in the chat box, after you shared the stream, I want you to type hashtag Freightpreneur. Okay? Hashtag Freightpreneur. FREIGHTPRENEUR. Here it is right here. You'll see it. Freightpreneur. And I'm going to pick one person that I'm going to give this away to, right? In the audience. So what I want you to do is I want you to share the stream first and then type in the chat box Freightpreneur, and I'm going to randomly select somebody from the stream here who's going to win that shirt. And for all of you, I appreciate you being here today, right? I truly do. I know your time is valuable. I know you're maybe working another job, or you're driving a truck, or you're watching your kids, or you're on break. I get it. I appreciate it. Appreciate you. I appreciate your time. I hope you found value in today's trainings. I hope you find value in these weekly Freight Broker Lives. Make sure that you, again, share the stream and then type in the chat box. You have about 1 minute to get this done. And then I got to roll. I got to go to the dentist. I got a chipped tooth. I'm in bad shape. Let me get a quick drink here, and I'm going to pick one person to get that shirt. So, all right. I will try to come back in later this week and try to answer some of the questions in the thread, in the comments, but I can't right now. Okay. I wish I could. I will try to come back in. I promise I'll try to come back in later this week and respond to some of the questions. I usually do. Okay. So we're getting some people. Make sure that you shared the stream. If you didn't share the stream, don't type Freightpreneur. Okay. That's the price of admission for getting in this contest. When I put this thing together, I had no intentions of giving them away. I just created one because I thought it was cool. And then now everybody wants these things. Every time I pull them up, everybody wants them. So I try to give away maybe one every week or one every other week. So here we go. What do we got? All right, you got 1 more minute, 30 seconds to enter the contest. 30 seconds. Share the stream on Facebook or YouTube or wherever, and then type Freightpreneur. 30 seconds. I'm going to do a countdown here, okay? If my phone opens up. You have stopwatch started. 30 seconds to get in the contest, and then I'm going to give it away. I'm going to give away the free t-shirt. And again, I did this at the end because I know there's certain people that maybe don't want the shirt, and there's certain people that are struggling for time. And so I didn't want to waste anybody's time on the front end. I have 15 seconds to share the stream and type Freightpreneur. And then I am going to randomly select somebody as a winner. And then what I will do is, if you win, I want you to send me a message through the Freight Broker Bootcamp Facebook page, through Messenger, through that page, with your name, your address, your phone number, and the size of the shirt. Okay. So if you do that, I will then send you off the shirt. You'll get it here in the next week or so. And so here we go, guys. I'm going to randomly scroll. I'm scrolling with my mouse through here. I'm going to close my eyes, and then I'm going to randomly point to somebody, right? And then whoever I point to is going to be the winner. Okay. So we've got 2 or 3 more people that have just joined. Here we go. Ready? Eyes closed. I'm going to randomly scroll through, and the winner is, where is it? Here it is. Miss McCoy. Miss McCoy. Miss McCoy is the winner. Congratulations, Miss McCoy. Thank you for everybody that played along and joined. Thank you for being here. Miss McCoy, what I want you to do, go to the Freight Broker Bootcamp Facebook page, facebook.com/Freight Broker Bootcamp. Send me a message with your full name, your address, your phone number, and the size. And I'm going to send this shirt off to you here, maybe after I go to the dentist, if I'm not out of commission, but definitely at some point this week, I'll send that shirt off to you. Thank you, everybody, for joining you. Thank you for being here. I do these Freight Broker Bootcamps live every Monday at noon. So mark your calendar, put a reminder in your phone, do whatever you got to do. Be here live. And I look forward to seeing you. Have an awesome day, and we'll talk soon.